So, could you please introduce yourself to us?
So Alistair Burns is my name. I'm an old age psychiatrist at the University of Manchester, and I'm the National Clinical Director for Dementia in NHS England.
Thank you. And how did you first become to be involved in PSSRU's work?
Well, it goes back many, many years, and I remember that I was at a meeting in Glasgow as it happened, and I forget the nature of the meeting, but I was talking about some form of nonsense, as I usually do, and I met David Chalice, who was there giving his wisdom, and as he always does so well. And we got talking, and we talked about opportunities in Manchester, and I hadn't been there very long. I think this was probably a couple of years after I started. And we got talking about the opportunities in terms of looking at older people, particularly dementia, that was my area, and obviously the supreme importance of the social aspects of care. And one thing led to another. I don't mean on that particular evening either, but one thing led to another, and we agreed that he would come and look at Manchester, and that was instrumental, I think, in the PSSRU having a kind of Manchester branch. And I know there were a number of political things at the time that it would have been very important for the PSSRU to have a kind of branch in a university, a medical, a clinical service, so it was very important. And with the support of the South Manchester University Hospitals Trust, we got together a package that was enough to convince David and a small number of colleagues, Jane Hughes and others, to come. So it was absolutely fantastic.
And what have been your fondest memories of working alongside PSSRU since then?
I think it's bringing the breadth of a kind of a clinical perspective that I would bring to using the influence that colleagues in the PSSRU have had. It's been an extraordinary privilege to sort of give some of the clinical aspects, but then not to have to worry about the professional aspects of getting grants, of managing grants, which like many clinicians I'm completely incapable of doing, and relying on colleagues at the PSSRU to be involved in that. I think if there was one memory, we used to have regular Tuesday afternoon meetings for the then Dementia Services Centre, which was started, and with David and Jane Hughes and colleagues, we used to have a tremendous time. It was like a sheltered workshop for me, and I would come up on a Tuesday afternoon, and we would go through things. It was a tremendous resource, supported by people like Maggie Pearson, who was then Director of R&D at the region, and these were great times. It sort of bonded us together, huge amounts of ideas, an extraordinary privilege.
And looking back, where do you think PSSRU's research has made the biggest impact, especially on the experiences of service users?
I think the impact is certainly in terms of the pragmatic nature of the work that's been done, the involvement of people with dementia and service users right from the outset of projects, something that goes through the whole thing. And I think if I'm looking just in terms of dementia, the organisation of old age psychiatry services and the tremendous reach that the PSSRU has in terms of getting people to fill in questionnaires, extraordinary persuasive powers. So I think the organisation of services, making services more aligned to the needs of users and carers, both on an individual basis, and having done some of the field work with people like Jane Hughes and gone to visit places in some of the work that we did on assessment, to I know the very high level policy to which PSSRU contributes a great deal. I think it's across the board.
And looking a bit wider, how do you think the relationships changed between research and frontline practice in that time?
I think the importance of research and the importance that organisations have put on research, I think, is is, I think, to me key, and it's almost the professionalisation of research, and colleagues I know in the PSSRU have always had that, but I think it's fair to say amongst clinicians such as myself, there was the old adage that research was something you did at the end of the day, in the evening and at weekends, when everything else had been done. But I think the professionalisation of research, to say that research is a full-time and proper job, and it can only be good if it's conducted in that professional way, obviously in collaboration with clinicians such as myself. But I think it's that focus, it's that professionalisation that for me is such a unique contribution.
Looking ahead, what do you think the priorities are for research in the social care field?
I think in terms of priorities, I mean, it has to be something, I think, to do with integration. It has to be something to do with linking across health and social care, which for the group that of people in which I'm particularly involved, people with dementia, that link is so crucial and so important, and integrating health and social care and looking at the opportunities in terms of better outcomes for patients and better value for money, I think has to be one of the key areas, and the PSSRU, I know before, has done a lot of work on this, and in many ways, as in many other things, the PSSRU is ahead of its time. So I think that integration for me, maintaining people at home and work in the community is so important.
And just lastly, how confident are you that we can meet the challenge of the ageing population and their care needs in the future?
In terms of confidence, it's something that we've got to do. So it's almost making a virtue out of a necessity. Yes, I think it's something that we have to do. We have to remember that ageing is one of the great successes. So when people sort of look at the issues of ageing and some of the disorders, dementia, frailty and the like, that are associated with ageing, it's timely to remind ourselves that in fact that's it's because of success we're here. As people say, one of the problems of success. So I think it's something that we have to face, and I'm supremely confident that colleagues in the PSSRU and colleagues working on that in collaboration is the way ahead.
Professor Burns, thank you very much, and I know PSSRU would like to thank you for all the support you've given over the years as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mark.